Okay, does everyone have a raffle ticket? It's not a board member. Okay. Okay, good evening, everyone. They will be bringing out more coffee, so we appreciate your patience with that. Okay. Welcome everyone to our November monthly chapter dinner. Welcome to our 40 virtual attendees on the line. Okay. And happy Member Appreciation Night. It's great to see a room of 140 of our members here, all happy and well fed, and our continual virtual attendees for those who couldn't make it tonight. We have had success with our chapter YouTube channel, and those out of the area or with prior commitments watching our presentations after the fact. So we're getting the hang of this new world we live in. Since 2004, our chapter wouldn't exist without you as our members. Many of you are members of the PMI WDC chapter, and that's a good thing. Some of you are members of the Silver Spring chapter, the Baltimore chapter. So you have other options, but the fact that for our longtime members, you stuck with us for decades, new members that we have in the audience, that you're giving us a chance. For $20 a year, we still think we're providing great value, and our chapter leadership's always been committed to being all about the members. So round of applause for yourselves. Pre-pandemic, we peaked at around 2,500 members. At post-COVID and during COVID, I think people rethought their association memberships. If I'm not networking, is it worth it? We dropped down to low 1,800s, and we're back up to flirting around 2,000 month to month. So we look forward in the next 2 years to getting back to that 2,500 member total. Upcoming highlights to look forward to for next year: an all-day education day and a 2-day symposium. So an opportunity to earn more than one PDU at a time. So tell a friend about the chapter, and we look forward to having a great year next year. Our chapter board members are all doing great things. Our president, Mr. Edry, will have an election announcement at the end. Tomorrow is everyone's favorite holiday, International Project Management Day. So happy holiday to everyone. Although PMI Global isn't doing anything this year for the day, IIL is doing a virtual conference where you can earn up to 29 PDUs. That's on-demand access for 90 days through February of next year, and under $70. So if you do the cost benefit analysis, it's not free, but it's not as bad as it could be. And you can still sign up for that via the IIL website even after tomorrow. I think you can register up until early December for that. So consider celebrating the holiday formally, but pat yourselves on the back and your peers and colleagues at work tomorrow on this very special holiday.
That's why we have cake.
Yep. And that's an excuse for the calories with this great cake that we have. Our Toastmasters group for the county, our sister partnership is still meeting. The next meeting is next Wednesday, starting at 7 o'clock. If you've been a part of Toastmasters in the past, you can resume your plan. If you're just interested in becoming more of a confident public speaker on different topics, give it a shot. They're still meeting virtually via Zoom, and we'll start to do a better job of promoting their meetings in our newsletters and comms that come from Ms. Trayvon. And that's the second and fourth Wednesday of every month, not to interfere with our meetings here. The president of the chapter is here. If you want to stand up. Any quick plug or? Our next meeting will be Wednesday, December 7th at around the same time. We look forward to having just as populated of a room, even with the $10 holiday special pricing. The topic will be resolving difficult conversations in leadership, which will be one PDU under the power skills on the talent triangle. And we have a certified coach and trainer, Ms. Kamanova, that Dr. Chen, our VP of programs, was able to have volunteer her time. So we're looking forward to that presentation, kick off the holiday season before holiday parties and the like starts. So block that off on your calendars, and we look forward to seeing hopefully just as many people. Okay. Our education partners are back to doing face-to-face education as well as virtual. So with the start of the fiscal year for government employees, as restarted your training education allowances for those in the private sector, that companies allocate hundreds or thousands of dollars for your own education. Consider stepping up to the next PM certification. Discipline Agile and Agile in general are starting to expand from just certified Scrum Master. So a lot of opportunities out there. And we're delighted this evening to welcome Ms. Hilary Kinney to the PMI Montgomery County stage. I was at the Gaithersburg Book Festival, which was a sweltering Saturday in June, and she was marketing her new book, Project Management for Parents, at a table. Got to talking, and when I was talking, I visualized her talking at this event probably in November, because either we're parents currently, we had parents, we know a parent, or we work with parents. So the topic applies to everyone. But she has an 18-year career supporting Marriott International in different roles. She'll share the variety and scope of those roles with us. Project Management for Parents is on Amazon and in the best-selling list once you drill down to the professional development. She's a prized pupil and trusted colleague of Mr. Lee Lambert, our friend of the chapter and one of the 20 living PMI fellows. So she joined us for Mr. Lambert's last briefing to us in April. She's a certified change practitioner from ProSci, and she's also carries a distinguished distinction of being a professionally trained pastry chef. She didn't make the chocolate cake, but she's guaranteed that her chocolate cake would be better than what we had here. And welcome, Ms. Kinney.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm a local Montgomery County member, so I'm really happy to be with you tonight to talk to you about project management for parents. And since we are talking about parenting, I always like to get a view on the parents in the room. So if you have a child under 18, please raise your hand. And for those of you on Zoom, you can give us a thumbs up. All right, how about under 13, if you have a child under 13? All right. How about child under 5? Okay, you guys are in the throes of it. I have a 10-year-old, and this presentation was born. Let me make sure I'm holding this the right way. Oh. Matt, am I going the right direction? There we go. So there's that was then during the pandemic, that's my son. And this is the beginning of the pandemic with us doing online school together when everything shut down. And this was the inspiration for this work that is now a book, Project Management for Parents. And as you know, it was really interesting for us as parents. We were trying to work from home. We were having to teach our children at home. There were no activities for our children. We had to stay home. The house was dirtier because we were there all the time. So our scope of work just expanded quite a bit. And I started hearing from other parents that they were feeling very overwhelmed and stressed out. And I just thought to myself, I was like, this feels a lot like work. Because I'm a project manager. I've been doing it for about 18 years with Marriott International. I started in food and beverage at the Ritz-Carlton corporate office in Chevy Chase, working on repositioning restaurants. And that morphed into broader project management with hotels. And then I worked for the president's office on special projects and strategic communications. And now I'm at the Marriott headquarters and I work in loyalty and I work on Salesforce rollouts for the customer engagement centers. So I've had a whole slew of different experiences in project management. And I think that helped me realize that, a lot of those principles that we use at work can also apply at home. And I'm curious, how many of you does anyone here work in construction? And I bet IT is a big one. How many people in IT? Any Marriott people here? Yay, go Marriott. So, we all work in different industries, and the beauty of project management is you can just use it for anything. And that's what I love about project management. It's an incredibly powerful framework that we can use to apply over and over again. And once you learn it, you can reapply it to different things. So you as project managers, you have a leg up, you understand the framework. And what I'd like to share with you today is how to get more done at home as a team, how to prioritize your busy schedules, considering the project management principle of constraints, how to be prepared for contingencies by using risk management, and then how to streamline and organize those workflows at home. So this is, let me back up. So this is the output of all that work. It started as a LinkedIn article in May of 2020. It's still up on my page if you want to take a look. And I just published 5 different ideas I had. And since then, it just kind of snowballed into a presentation at the 2020 International Project Management Day, the IIL conference. And that snowballed into a book deal. And the book came out in February. And here we are today. Thanks. So it's been really fun, unexpected. I never planned on writing a book, but it's just been a fun journey. And it's gotten some great feedback. And the Library Journal, and I'm a daughter of a librarian who works in the Montgomery County Library. So this review is special to me, that it's quite helpful to the many overwhelmed parents juggling career and family obligations. And it's now in over 150 libraries. So it's been a super fun journey for this to come about. And this is my goal, is that we'll go from the picture on the left. Anyone feel like the picture on the left? The overwhelmed, everything's crazy, stressed out, tired parent, to having more time to spend on things that you enjoy and more quality time with your family. So that's the goal as we go through this. And this is how we're going to get there tonight. We're going to talk about how to create family champions, how to stop feeling overwhelmed and focus on your priorities. Does that sound good? How to proactively plan for contingencies, and how to get organized and streamline life at home. All right. So before we get started, I just like to set it up is when I think about project management, I think about it as people plus process. And, you know, as project managers, we often think a lot about the tasks that are involved in the work, but it's the people that we need to get it done. And those work hand in hand in building those high performing teams to do that. And the interesting thing about outside of work that I think is important to recognize is outside of work, we're much more focused on the relationship, right? So our family is our home, it's the people that we love, and we want to keep those relationships positive and encouraging, but we still need to get work done. So in this presentation, I skew a little bit more on the people side of things. And I always recommend that you keep the work processes as simple as possible. And at work too, like no one likes a project manager that's constantly asking for status updates, right? And then you never know where those status updates go. So at home, I like to keep things simple too, because the end goal is to have enough process to get you organized and make your life easier in the long run. It's not to overburden you with too much process that takes more time. All right, so we're going to talk about how to create family champions. And what I like to really focus on, I'm big on communication and getting people involved. And a lot of that ties into my change management experience, and that getting people involved early and using their ideas in your projects is a great way for them to have ownership and buy-in in what you're doing. So you'll hear that theme a lot through my presentation is get your kids involved. This isn't just for you and your partner, it's for everyone in the family. And that's how you can really get them bought into what you're doing, and things will go more smoothly in the long run. And then with that, you involve the family, you engage them, that builds teamwork, and then you'll end up succeeding together. So what I like to start out with is how many of your companies have a mission statement? And it's like your guiding principle for what that company is meant to do. And it provides a lot of clarity for your goals and what the overall mission is. I worked for Ritz-Carlton for a very long time. And we are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. And that was our guiding star for anything we did. And it was very clear, and it was a quick reminder of how we're supposed to conduct ourselves. So I encourage families to consider what's your family mission statement and what do you want that family environment to be like? And it's a great way to start out and set your North Star and start having that conversation of, well, what do we want our family life to look like? And it kind of gives you the direction in where you want to head and how you want to use these tools to get where you want to go. Because if you don't know where you want to go, you don't really know how to get there. So here are just some thought starters to start the conversation, and just start talking to your family, and it doesn't have to be a presentation with PowerPoint slides like you would do at work. Just have a conversation over dinner, like, hey, we've been thinking about, just putting some words on paper on what our family is like and what we want it to be like. And, you can say, what words describe our family? What do we love to do? Like our family, we're big outdoorsy people. We love to go camping and hiking. So we spend a lot of time doing that. We love to travel. What values do we want our families based on? And what helps us do our best? What sort of environment do we want to create? If you have really little kids, like the little ones over here, they can draw pictures. You can ask them, how do you want to feel? If you have older kids, you can do a Pinterest board. There are lots of resources online. So there are different ways to go about it. And then it's also helpful to think about what happens when you have conflict. Like, sometimes with our teams, we have contracts on how we're going to treat each other should conflict arise. And you can do the same thing with your families. How should we treat each other? How should we behave when we have a fight? And this is also a really useful exercise if you're having two blended families that are coming together as one family. And if you have older children, you can start having that conversation because they've had two very different family experiences. And how do you want to interact as this new family? And start having those conversations and understanding each other better. So here are some examples of what you can do. They can be very simple. For us, I had visions of us, crocheting something and hanging on the wall. That never happened. I think my husband and I talked about it. We lost a piece of paper and then I bought something on Amazon. So this is actually the third picture is something I bought. We've since iterated to one that's a little more detailed, but you can buy something and hang it on your wall. That's fine. Ours is in our dining room. And yesterday my husband, pulled one of the phrases out for my son and we talked about it and talked through examples of how we experienced that in our day-to-day life. He was having conflict with one of the kids in the neighborhood, so we talked through that. So it can be very simple. Some of them are just, I can't read it. Let's see. Our motto as a family is to be devoted, caring, helpful, encouraging. Some, they've got the little acronym with their family names, so you can be a little more creative. But don't overthink it. Just get something on paper, put it on your fridge, and you can always change it later. Now that you've got your North Star and your mission, I encourage you to consider some team building activities. And we do this at work. We go play putt-putt. Has anyone been dragged to axe throwing? Wow, there's more than I would have thought. So we do these activities at work, and why do they take us on these activities at work? To laugh, team building, right? And there's a purpose behind it. And it's not only do you get to know each other better, you kind of get to know how they communicate. You may understand their quirks or their sense of humor a little bit better. And you're also accomplishing something together in a fun way. And that helps you figure out how you're going to work together on something harder. So I encourage families to consider doing the same thing. Be proactive on those team building activities. And by doing something active together, it also opens up those channels of communication to have other conversations and forge those connections. And it's especially helpful with teenagers that may be a little harder to communicate with. By doing those activities together, maybe going camping or hiking, you can have conversations in other ways and understand each other. And consider putting something down maybe once a month to do together. And then how many of you do project status meetings every week? Really, that's it? I thought everyone did project status meetings every week at work. So for project status meetings, we're checking in on what work was done that week, what are we going to do next week, and what's happening, what might people need help with. We can do the same thing with our families. And again, it doesn't have to be formal. It can just be over dinner. But how are things going? And what worked well and what didn't work well? And the beauty of this is that it really starts building those executive function skills in our kids. And they start thinking through and start planning out what they need to do and also start problem solving. So it's a very useful exercise. It's also like a retrospective of learning lessons learned and what they can apply to something else. So again, don't keep it super formal, but just check in with them, see how things are going, and then you can iterate as needed. The picture of the rose is just something to consider for little kids. If they don't quite understand these bigger questions, you can say, what was your flower this week? And that's like, what went well? Or, what was your thorn? What was difficult? Or what's your bud? What are you going to work on next week? So just a way of thinking it through for that. So those are the top tips to create family champions. First, create your intentional family mission and your values. Then focus on team building activities. And then encourage teamwork and communication with those regular family check-ins. And now that we have our North Star, we're going to talk about focusing on our priorities. And this is one of my favorite concepts in project management, and that's the theory of constraints. And this I find especially interesting because constraints are focused on our limits. And at work, what happens if we get over budget? Do they applaud us and let us do it again? No, we might get fired or, it's definitely not allowed. Or, what happens if we go way over our timeline? That's frowned upon. But what I find interesting in our personal lives is that in terms of time and energy, we're often overextending ourselves, and especially as parents. And I think it's good to flip that coin, on its head and think, okay, instead of thinking about my never-ending list of possibilities, let's think of what am I limited by and how can I set myself up for success by considering that. Because, there's that whole superwoman theory out there that we can do anything all the time, or the Superman who can, just keep going no matter what. And there are costs to that. So I just want us to think through in a different way how we can protect ourselves a little better and focus on what's really important to us. So as you know, our lovely triple constraints, scope, time, and costs, which we know and love as project managers, and we run our projects off of, and scope or quality of work. So what I've done, inspired by Harold Kersner, who's one of my favorite project management authors, I could read his books all day, but they told me I needed to stop reading them and focus on Vita Mulcahy to practice my PMP exam, which I did. So what he did is he expanded the idea of constraints for projects. So what I've done is I've expanded it for families. And as you can see, at the top, we still have time. We still have cost, which is budget. So those are similar to the two of the three triple constraints. And what I've done here, these ones in the middle, this is all our scope. So we have parents, work, and career, which is our work. We have kids' education, which is their work. That's their job. And all this family-related work. Honestly, this is the stuff I often forget about. Or I thought would just magically happen. But it's all that stuff that's required to make your household run. It's like the housekeeping, it's the grocery shopping, it's the doctor's appointments, it's the car repairs. And there's a lot there that needs to happen. Another piece of work is this extracurricular activities and hobbies. And everything that we do, to have fun outside the house. And these two at the bottom, I think are important to focus on, that quality of life and health and safety. Quality of life is, what's our family time? Are we spending vacations together? Health and safety, anything we do to take care of our health, going to the gym, etc. So all these things are things that constrain our families, and everyone's stop sign is going to look a little different. My stop sign is going to look different than your stop sign. Yes.
I think kids that were first, second grade during the pandemic in a virtual setting were robbed or missed out on extracurricular activities to some extent, and there's a resistance to do the extracurricular because it's foreign to them now. Like, what are your recommendations for overcoming that? Or as a project manager, just be like, these are requirements, you have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
We can't do that. So
right, exactly. Right. Yep. So the question is, during the pandemic, a lot of kids didn't have extracurricular activities, so they're really not familiar with them, and they're resistant to trying it. And it sounds like they might be a little scared, do you think, of trying those different things? So I would go back to that getting buy-in and input and start asking them, well, what do you want to try and what do you want to do? And see what they're naturally interested in. Like, my son's super athletic, but even when we went to basketball tryouts for the first time when he was young, he was literally like attached to my leg and he didn't want to try out for basketball, even though he was very sporty. And I kind of I had to dribble the ball with him to get him. I was like, well, let's just do it together. So that's how I did it. And now he loves basketball and he's really good at it. So I think we need to honor that fear that they have, and because it's valid. It's kind of like a scary world out there for them, right? Like they were probably growing up in that era. They were kind of taught to be scared of the outside world. This is not project management related. This is but just thinking it through. I mean, I can see where they're coming from. That it's a scary world out there. So I would just come alongside them and sort of walk with them and talk through those emotions and help them process it. From a change management perspective, when you want to go from something known to something unknown, it's scary and it's a change. So help work them through those emotions to help them get from point A to point B. So do you guys know and love ADKAR? The pro-sci change model. awareness, desire, knowledge. What's the A? Acceptance, and then reinforcement. So it's like helping them work through that transition by making them aware. So it sounds like they don't have the desire to do that. So how do you build that desire in them? Maybe take them to a game or take them to an art gallery to help them have interest in that activity. So I'm not covering change management in this presentation, but I'll give you a little snippet so you can help support them through that process and then equip them with the skills, because they may not have the skills to do sports. So what can we do to help them along the way, and maybe practice basketball with them at home before they try out for the big team, to sort of support them as they make that transition. Does that answer the question? Okay, good. All right. So quality of life, health, and safety at the bottom. And so what I want us to think about is what makes sense for your family in the middle of your stop sign. And how big do you want that circle to be, and how small do you want it to be? And also, what kind of white space do you want to have in there? And white space is like buffer or flexibility in your schedules, or should something change? And do you want your circle sort of at the outer limits of that stop sign with no flexibility, or do you want it a little smaller? And how do you want to adjust it as needed? So in my family, there are quite a few constraints. My husband's disabled. I have an aging mother. My son is 10, and my son and I both have a lot of food intolerances. So I have to spend a lot of my time on food prep. So those are the constraints on my family. Fortunately, due to COVID, we don't have long commutes anymore. So that's freed up some time. So that's sort of like what my family stop sign looks like. And so that gives us certain constraints. But everyone's constraints are different. So just keep that in mind as you go through this. So what happens if you overdo it? What are the costs? So I think it's really important to think about, okay, so what happens if we max out our stop sign? I like to relate it to a water balloon. That balloon's going to burst eventually. And there are costs of overextending ourselves. It could be your marriage could suffer, your relationship with your kids could suffer, your health could suffer. So I think it's really important to think about, what choice are you making when something gets busy? So if we go back to, let me just back it up to here. When I get busy at work, the first thing that usually goes is my quality of life, because I'm spending more hours on my work, less time at the gym, less time doing food, less time with my family, so that my quality of life suffers. And that's fine if I'm making that conscious choice and I can handle that for a short period of time. But what happens if that keeps going? There are long-term consequences of that. So I just want us to be cognizant of those choices that we're making, and making sure it lines up with what we really want for the long term, and not burst our balloon. So you're like, okay, Hilary, I get it. Like, I don't want to overdo it. I need to take care of myself and my family, but what do I do about it? So what this framework does, it gives us a way to think through how we can adjust things, and what things are more flexible and what things are less flexible to change. So time and budget are a little harder to change. It's hard to change the clock, and it's hard to change the amount of money coming in. Obviously you can with a new job, but it's just a little more inflexible. The more flexible items at the very bottom are quality of life and health and safety. To my previous point of, when things get busy, you're usually, spending less time taking care of yourself. So in the middle of the workload are things that are a little more adjustable. Parents' work and career, children's education, family-related work around the house, and extracurricular activities and hobbies. You can adjust those a bit to make changes. And the way that I suggest thinking about it is like a seesaw. How can you reduce that workload to make it smaller, to shrink your circle, or how can you add resources to help you? So workload, literally, you can shrink your workload. So when my son came home, I dropped to a part-time schedule. So now I work about 25 to 30 hours a week, and I've been doing that for 10 years now. So that's how we reduced our workload at home, so I had more time to focus on parenting. How can you add resources to help? Can you add grocery delivery to help you? Can you add house cleaning to help you at home? Do you have relatives that can help you with childcare? So what things can you add to take that workload off you and make that size a little more manageable? And the other thing I recommend people to think about is the quality level of the work. You know, in the triple constraints, it's often scope or quality. So I went to culinary school. You know, I'm a foodie, I love food, but now is not the time in my life to be making 3-course meals. We have chicken nuggets, burgers, and tacos every week. And that's okay, because we're busy, right? I don't have time. I can go to the grocery store, buy the same things. We serve the same things every night, and everyone's happy. You know, my husband loves it, thankfully. He's not a picky eater, and my son is happy, and it works for us, and it makes our lives a lot easier. So those are some different ways to think through how can you adjust your workload at home to make it more manageable for you. And once you've had that conversation with your family, what makes sense, and involve your family. And it's interesting, like I even involved my son in these conversations because this fall, he unfortunately broke his thumb at recess playing basketball. And that took him out of flag football for the fall because we had signed him up for flag football and that was going to be a big part of our schedule. And suddenly he had no activities. And my son is super active. Like he's an active boy and he needs exercise. And I was thinking, well, what can we do to keep him entertained? And I was thinking, well, you know, if he can't exercise, maybe I can help him, like, you know, be stimulated mentally. So I was like, oh, maybe voice lessons or art lessons. What can we do? So we went to Bach to Rock down in Rio and we checked it out. And then we went to the art studio in downtown Crown and checked that out. And I was like, well, what do you want to do? And he goes, oh, I don't want to do voice lessons. And I don't know about the art studio. And he's like, Mom, that would just be too much, like doing 2 activities a week. I wouldn't have any time to like play with my friends. I'm thinking, okay, because I was tempted to just sign him up, right? I was like, oh, we love voice lessons. He sings at home all the time, but he told me, no, I don't want to do it. So it was good that I involved him. And it was also interesting insight that, you know, he just needs his downtime and he wants his playtime. So we ended up signing him up for a STEM class at school. And he was perfectly happy with that. And that's 1 day a week. So it all worked out. And he was actually pretty tired from the thumb injury. So it all worked out so far. So what I recommend doing is once you've decided on what's going to work for you, is make your in and out of scope plan like we do for our projects. Because it's always important on our projects to document at work what we're not going to do. So it's very clear to all our sponsors and stakeholders what's not included in the project, so they can't come back and say, oh, I thought you were going to do this. We're like, well, no, actually, we didn't. We plan not to do that. We can always say that's phase 2, right? That's happening later. So what I recommend families do is document what's in the plan and what's out of the plan. What are you going to commit to get to those priorities that are important to your family? So for example, you know, are you going to only do 1 activity per week for the parents and kids? You know, is your goal family dinner 3 nights a week? You know, are you going to use a house cleaner and grocery delivery services? And is your goal 2 family vacations a year? So put it on paper. And I think the important part is what's out of your family plan. What are you not going to do? Because there's plenty of asks of your time and there are plenty of opportunities for us to do things. You know, oh, Joey down the street is doing chess club. Should we be doing chess club too? You know, the church asks me to volunteer. Should I volunteer? Or there's a board position open. Should I do that? And I made that mistake last year. I signed up to be PTA board secretary because I thought it would be a great match for my project management skills and I could contribute a lot, but it was way too much time and way too much stress. And it just detracted from our family life. So I learned that lesson. And this year I'm not PTA board secretary anymore. So we just need to be mindful of what works for our family and just write it down. And then when you get that phone call, you can remember, oh, wait, I remembered that I'm not going to do that. And I'm saying yes to something else. All right, top tips to focus on your priorities as a recap. Recognize those constraints impacting your family on that stop sign. Make those desired changes by looking at that seesaw, either lower their workload or add resources to help. And then identify items that are in and out of your new family plan. And one of the parents that I spoke with that did this, it was really helpful for her. because she got that phone call from school saying, hey, we're missing you at our board meetings. Can you come? And she graciously said, no, thank you. Because she remembered that, she had it posted in her office that she wasn't committing to that anymore. So it's a way to hold yourself accountable too. All right, so now that you have your mission for your family and you know what your priorities are, let's plan for those contingencies when things pop up. Because as parents, things can definitely pop up and we're pretty maxed out anyway. So it's good to be prepared should things happen. So we're going to talk about how do you apply risk management to parenting. How many use risk management at work? Yeah, good. I love a good risk management conversation. And the other thing I love about project management is it gives us the opportunity to talk about difficult things in a sort of structured manner that takes the emotion out of it. And that's the thing that I think is really helpful about risk management in our personal lives. If you think about applying risk management to those awkward family conversations about what if you have to talk to your elderly parents about stopping driving? Or, what about talking to your teenagers about, drug use? You can use risk management principles to sort of take the emotion out of it and have that conversation. So that's why I think this is pretty powerful for families too. So as we know and love the PMBOK, yay! A risk is an uncertain event or condition that, if it occurs, has a positive or negative effect on one or more project objectives. For this presentation, I'll mainly be focused on negative things. So what are some things that can happen to families that would be a risk? Exactly, broken thumb, yeah. Illness, yeah. Yeah, car broke down. Got laid off, yeah. Exactly, so those are some of the risks to our families. And as you know, in our work, there are many different categories of risk, but what I've done here is I've highlighted the three that are related to families. So schedule risk, what are those? I don't know, as a parent, I don't know about you, but as a parent, I just feel our schedule sometimes can be so high risk because any 5-minute change can just throw everything off. So what can impact your schedule? What if your caregiver calls out and you don't have daycare, you don't have any care for your kids for the day? That's huge risk to you. How do you go to work? Budget, like job loss. Or an unexpected expense, like a car repair, a house repair. And performance risks, those things that impact quality levels of school, work, quality of life, health and safety, like a serious illness, like you said, or poor school grades. So these are ways we can sort of think about those risks. So when we're considering these risks, could an asteroid hit our home? Would it have a high impact? What's the likelihood? So should we plan for that risk? No, exactly. So let's think about what's high impact and what's the likelihood. So for those of you that live in the DC area, you can probably appreciate that my husband and I have had, back in the day when we worked in downtown DC, a plan for a terrorist attack on DC. How would we meet up? That probably sounds crazy to people who don't live in the DC area, but if you live in the area, you understand that you kind of need to manage for that. So we actually had a plan of how we would evacuate and where we would meet up. So for us, that was a risk. So just consider what makes sense for your family to plan for, and plan for the ones that are likely to happen and have an impact on your family. So ways to have the conversation. This is one area that I recommend just talking about with your partner. Don't involve your kids because it can be a slightly scarier conversation, or just, have them feeling a little uncertainty. So here are some talking points. What could go wrong with our schedule or budget? Is there a potential, job loss? Is your company going through a reorg? How volatile is your industry? During COVID, I worked in hospitality, so I was laid off. Fortunately, my husband, he is an editor. He was not laid off, so that worked out for us. So those different risks on your family. What could negatively impact our quality of life, kids' education, health and safety? Around COVID, we had to manage a lot of risks to health and safety and how we're going to live our lives to protect ourselves from the virus. So basically, it's a conversation around what if. And then once you've identified those, don't go too crazy, because it can be overwhelming thinking about all the negative things that could happen. Try to, keep it to a shorter list. And then once you've identified them, start thinking through, okay, well, what can we do about it? And what's the best way to address it? And start brainstorming. And this may take several conversations and it may change over time. So maybe think about them, take a break, and then come back and start thinking about the resolution. And also keep in mind that everyone has different risk tolerances, and it could be in different areas. So I'm a saver, my husband's a spender, so we have different risk tolerances over money. So in any relationship, people are going to have different perspectives. So some of these conversations may be a little more difficult, but there's a way with project management to make it more easy. And this is actually a pretty straightforward way that I also use at work. You first, you identify those risks, you rate the impact and likelihood. You can do high, medium, and low. And then, you and your partner could each provide a rating, and then you could come to that rating in the middle to figure out which ones make sense for you to address, and then start thinking through your pre-planned responses and how you're going to address them. And then if you really want to go full geek, write it down, have a plan, keep that Excel spreadsheet on your computer and revisit it. So for example, what if your babysitter moves? We had a great babysitter, so my husband and I could go on regular date nights, but that babysitter got old and after college and was no longer interested in babysitting, so we had to find a new babysitter. So constantly think through, okay, what's changing and what do we need to update? We also have the risk of our car stopping working. We have a RAV4 that has 150,000 miles on it. And, during COVID, cars were really hard to find and they were super expensive. So we've been getting every last mile out of this car for the last 3 years and putting a lot of engine oil in it. And we're still managing this risk because thank goodness the car is still running. And we'll probably keep doing that until it finally goes and we'll get a new one. But in the meantime, we're saving money to buy a new car. And what about for parents? I think our biggest risk that has the biggest impact on us is childcare. What if there's a school holiday, like, November 7th and 8th, there's no school in Montgomery County. How do you manage that? What if you have younger children and, daycare is shut down because of a COVID exposure? What's the plan? And what can you do about it? And what can you do about it in advance? So when you get that phone call, you're ready and you can just take care of it and not get stressed out. So is there a backup relative? Do you want to talk to a neighbor about, being your backup childcare? Do you want to sign up with drop-in care at a facility? That's what we do. We decided to have a backup childcare facility that we use for holidays and school closures. So, but that took some pre-work. We had to find the daycare facility. We had to interview them. We had to take our son for a tour, and we had to complete all the paperwork to get him enrolled. So that took some pre-work over a few weeks. But now when the school holidays come up, I just, filled out the permission forms today and mailed them in, and he's going to have some fun activities, learning about reptiles and doing other fun things. So think through it in advance, and then you can be ready when it happens and reduce your stress. So top tips to manage risks at home: proactively consider those risks, talk to them about them with your partner, develop a proactive plan and implement it as needed, and revisit it as necessary. All right, so the last segment of this presentation, we're going to talk about how do you bring it home and how do you make it happen? How do you manage this work at home? More of a task management section, so we can get out of this, disorganized world and hopefully into something a little more streamlined. And I want to talk about the 4 parts of a task. We all know and love IPAC: initiation, planning, execution, and control. And as project managers, we know and love that. And I want us to think about that at home, because I think a lot of focus is put on execution at home and getting it done. But at work, our job is the planning and, organizing it. And an example of this would be grocery shopping. Okay, I need to think about, we need to go to the grocery store. I need to plan to go to the grocery store. I need to make a list. I need to go to the grocery store, and then when I come home, I need to put away the groceries, see what they didn't have, and write down what I might need to get at a different grocery store. So I have to go through the whole process of initiation, planning, execution, and control. And that's the same thing for everything. Laundry, I got to think about doing the laundry. I have to plan to do the laundry. I have to sort the laundry. I have to do the laundry. Then I have to put away and then figure out when I need to do the laundry next and see if I need any laundry detergent. So at home, I think it's important to think about all these different parts of the task and who's going to do that work. And what that's often referred to, that you may have seen in sort of the public arena, is they call that the mental load. And as project managers, this is what we do all day long. We carry the mental load of our projects of work, the planning, the organizing, the resourcing, and the tracking. But at home, the same thing needs to happen. Historically, this role has fallen on women. And you've probably heard about in the pandemic, a disproportionate amount of women ended up leaving the workforce to handle these increased workload at home. And a lot of those women are still not working in the profession that they were before. So people are seeing this as a big problem. So what they found is that there was so much going on at home, they needed someone there to do the work as well as organize it. And it's been referred to as like that ticker tape in the news. Okay, the kid has a doctor's appointment. We got to go to soccer practice. We need to do the grocery shopping. Just all the things running through their head of everything that needs to happen at home. And that's it's a job. We get paid for it professionally, but it's also a job at home. So our role as project managers is we identify the work, we determine schedule availability, we assign the work, and we monitor and adjust. And guess what? We can do the same thing at home. And it can help have that conversation and communicate with each other what needs to happen in a structured way and figure it out together because we're all on the same team. And that's what I love about project management. So again, involve the family, talk it through, and determine who does what. And because it's at home, let's make it a little fun. Let's not make it, a boring project team meeting and, fighting for resources. Let's, think about the people, think about those relationships, and how can we maintain those as we get this work done. So what I like to do is, you can see this funny picture in the back. It's a steering wheel with a bunch of Post-its on it. Oh my goodness, I need to take the dog to the groomer. I need to buy cat food. Try to remember everything that's going on. And there's a lot that happens at home. So to make it fun, let's have a competition. Let's have all the kids, whoever writes down the most Post-its of stuff that needs to be done around the house wins. So let's just figure out what needs to happen. And it helps provide visibility into the work that's going on. You may not be aware that someone's watering the plants or taking the car to the mechanic, or you may have forgotten, but it helps bring visibility to everything that needs to happen. And then once you've figured out everything that needs to happen, consider people's schedules. Does someone have a long commute and they're not as available to help, on a certain day? Is someone is working more hours than the other person? What's their availability to help? And then also think about, when you decide who does what are people good at? What are their natural talents? You do not want my husband cooking. So I enjoy it. I love it. I do the cooking. He does the dishes. He does our laundry. And that's our way of splitting things up to make it easier for each other. And then when you manage that work and decide who owns it, who's taking that project manager role, it's really hard for one person to project manage everything. It's easier to categorize it out for each unit of work and manage it from initiation to control. So if my husband's doing the laundry, he just handles it. He plans when he does it. He does it. He figures out what he needs to do next. I don't think about it. I handle the cooking and the grocery shopping, and I handle that from initiation to control. And that's a way of reducing the mental load on the other person by splitting it up into categories. So my husband handles most of scheduling my son's activities and signing him up. Doctor's appointments, we kind of go back and forth, but just figure out what works for your family based on your natural skill sets and your availability. What's the easiest way to divide up that work and handle it from beginning to end? So here are just some simple organization systems that I've used at home. So this is one, it's just a whiteboard for your kids. Just list what they need to do that day. They can check it off. And then I list how much screen time he has, and then a long-term projects in the lower left-hand corner. This is a weekly system that I've also used. It uses icons, which can be useful for kids that are younger, so they can see a trash can and know that they need to take the trash out. This one, we related it to his allowance. So you can see this week he got $3 out of $5 for what he did. And we also kept track of the number of times we had to ask him because we were trying to reduce that to a lower number. This is a lovely Kanban board that you can also use at home. You can put this on a poster board. You can put it on a whiteboard and just use sticky notes and run it across as the work is in progress. This is useful for families with more kids, with more going on probably in high school and middle school, that they have more homework to do, and you can color code it by blue or green for chores or homework. Some families use online tools, all the project management software. Personally, I think that's too much, but if you love that sort of thing and that works for you, go for it. Again, use a process that's simple and works for both the parents and the family so that you can stay organized and not spend too much time on the process, and it'll save you time in the long run. So top tips to streamline life at home: talk about the role of the project manager for those different roles and those different workflows. Involve those family members, have the conversations, make it fun, and have ongoing check-in meetings just to talk through how it's going and what you might need to change. And keep it simple and use an organization system that works for everyone. All right, so my goal is that I hope you can be more like this parent here, more time for quality time with your kids and what you want to focus on. And then if you want some quick next steps as a recap, schedule family team building activities, talk about your mission, document those items that are in and outside of your realistic family plan on your stop sign, and implement an organization system that works for everyone. So here are more resources. The books at all major online retailers. You can check it out from Montgomery County or DC Public Library. You can check out my website, and I also have a monthly newsletter where I apply project management to everyday life, like broken thumbs. That was last month. So thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you attending, and feel free to connect with me on my social channels or on LinkedIn. I love to be connected to fellow project managers. Thank you. Any questions? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Be a covert project manager. Sure. So the question is, what do you do when your partner says, stop PMing me, project management me, and I want a very laissez-faire, hands-off approach at home? So yeah, I would take a step back. Sometimes I've gotten that feedback from my family that I'm too much my like brothers and sisters when we're planning like family vacations, that I'm too much of a taskmaster. So I kind of have to rein it in a little bit. So just be sensitive to that more relational side of things, and hold back on those Excel spreadsheets a bit. Don't take those out first, and focus more on the conversation and the ideas behind it, rather than the think like this, and this needs to happen. Focus more on that buy-in and involvement, and using their ideas to get that ownership of the process. And I think just having subtle check-in meetings, like, so how did it go this week, and how is our schedule this week, is a subtle way of getting their input and feedback, but not making it so formal that it feels like work. So it's like applying the concepts, but taking out some of the formality to it, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's hard because I can very easily transition into the taskmaster, and I need to like rein it in. And my husband will joke with me, like, you're being too much of a project manager. I'm like, okay, sorry. and I kind of, and have them keep you honest, and let them know if you're overdoing it and it's too much. And think back on that relational side instead of the work side. Any other questions? Yes, in the back. The stop sign? I'm not sure. It just came out of my head. Well, I know how it came. So when I was developing this work, my initial presentation at International Project Management Day in 2020, I presented the constraints, but I think I had maybe 6 constraints. And then the more I thought about it, I added 2 more. And then I realized that that's 8. So that's a stop sign. And it just was a natural connection. So it kind of iterated over time. And it's just, I think, a really powerful way of communicating how to think about it. Yes. Yeah.
So what about executive decisions where you just have to put down and say, this is the way it's going to go?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my kids are all grown, so I did a lot of this.
Yeah.
And I just realized, yes, I did. But I sometimes, a lot of times, the executive would make decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah, I'm trying to think. So yeah, sometimes I say to my son, I get frustrated because I'm the parent. You just reach a point sometimes you're like, this cannot be a 2-hour conversation, with every opinion. I mean, it's just reality. Sometimes you just have to do that and move on. I mean, I think getting their input and just explaining to them why, and just say, look, I feel strongly about this, or it's a personal safety issue, or, I appreciate your input. And just involve them where you can, but just let them know sometimes that I just need to make a decision and move on. And sometimes we're honest with our son, like, at jobs, you just have to sometimes, do what your boss tells you to do, and that's just kind of how it goes. So it's good practice. Don't feel too bad. It's good practice for later on. It's fine. But yeah, sometimes, my son's an excellent negotiator, and, I could spend all day negotiating with him, but who has time, right? Sometimes you just gotta make a decision and go for it. Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Frederick. Can you share the tips on how this model work for family with teenagers and high school kids? If you don't want to sit down and have this kind of formal planning with you, well, oftentimes they don't even want to listen to your plan.
Right.
But I mean, I think this is great for kids who are in the bracket where I'm part of it. Can you share your experience or maybe some thoughts?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my sister has teenagers. One's now in college and one's in high school. So she was sort of like my teenage input person. So yeah, she made me make sure the teenagers were involved. And then again, that sort of focusing on the because they can be hard to communicate with and get talking. So try to have those activities together, and you don't have to call it anything, just do something together. And because I think when we're doing things together, it's easier to have those conversations and build those bonds. So maybe go to Top Golf and hit some golf balls and just talk about how school's going, or just do something together to get to grease those wheels and to sort of reduce that sort of separation and that resistance. Because they say, you probably heard, if you just go on a walk with someone, you're kind of moving in the same direction, and it helps build alignment. Like, I try to get my son to walk the dog with me just so we can chat. Of course, he wants to play Pokemon Go, but I'm like, no, I just want to talk to you. And he's like, oh. So yeah, so I would try those activities first, and sort of like being the undercover project manager, weave in those conversations as you're doing it, and then really focus on asking their opinion, because what with teenagers is they're striving to be independent and they're striving to be their own person. So we do need to take a step back, because when they're younger, we're more directive. And when they're older, we want them to become their own person and launch, right? That's our ultimate goal. I like to think about it as being like a goose, because geese, you ever see when they fly in formation, they're very close and they sort of go along together. And then gradually that one goose, we want to teach our kids how to fly. And eventually we want them to lead that triangle and fly on their own. So we need to come alongside them, but honor that independence and their decision-making that they're striving for and that they need to learn, and ask for their opinion, implement their opinion, try it. And sometimes you just have to let them fail. Let them try it. If it doesn't work out, you can talk about it. Well, went well, what didn't go well? And sort of let them sort of work it through on their own and start building those skills, because we can't project manage them for the rest of their life. We need to build those skills into them and build those executive function skills and those problem solving skills in them by having those conversations and trying it. And then they eventually have to try it on their own. And there's a chapter in my book on Agile and using that to help older kids with their homework and becoming more independent, and sort of, letting them learn and grow through the process too.
We'll send an email to the PMI data analytics team tomorrow to see what the youngest age of PMP certification was, but we think that Ms. Kinney's son has a good chance of earning that moniker. So in addition to donating a weekday evening, which as parents know is a hard sell to get away sometimes, Ms. Kinney also donated 10 of her books this evening for raffle. Our virtual random number generator came out to Rachel Collins, so Ms. Collins will make sure to get you a copy. And everyone should have a raffle ticket by now. So our wonderful new Vice President of Communications is going to call members. Please raise your hand and I'll get your books to you. For those winners at heart, but not winners of the raffle, as Ms. Kinney stated, her books on Amazon, a Kindle copy is around $16, and then the actual book itself in the flesh is around $17.95, so a steal. And please stay in your seats. Our chapter president, Mr. Edry, has some closing remarks. And thank you for everyone who brought food to support Mana Food Center. Right down around the corner from Shady Grove and Gaither. They're one of Montgomery County's leading food assistance nonprofits. You'd be surprised the number of families that are struggling to feed their households. So every bag means a lot. And on behalf of their executive director and friend of the chapter, Jackie DiCarlo, thank you. I'll hand it to Ms. Trayvon.
Okay, so I think we have 9 copies of this wonderful book. So let's try the last 3 numbers of the ticket and see if that works out. So 362 is the first winner. All right.
Every book's signed, but Ms. Kinney will hang out with Ben on general.
Okay, next number is 278. There we go. Okay, next number is 327. Anybody with 327? Don't see that one. Okay, let's try 274. A lady in back. Okay, 392. 392. There we go. Okay, 347. Okay, lady in the middle. 347. She's a lady in the purple there. Okay. Number 281. Woohoo! Enthusiasm. All right. You good? Okay, we got 302. Okay. Okay, we're down to our final two books. Number 372. Okay, all right. Okay, Matt's getting a workout, and the final number is 337. 337. Hey, the lady in the stripes. Okay, awesome. Welcome, Jean, to the city.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. 4 minutes until I can get you out of here on time. So I want to thank everybody for being here at our annual member appreciation dinner. So thanks for coming, being in person. I know we've got a lot of folks online too. Appreciate it. Do you feel appreciated? Yes, this is yes. Okay. I have head waves, but that's fine. Enthusiastic head waves. We appreciate you. We appreciate you being members of this chapter. One of the things that is going to be coming up is our annual elections. So that's going to be electronic ballots like we've done in the past. And what we're going to be doing this year, I have technically another year on my term as president, but I am purposely, not because anything's wrong or anything like that, I'm going to be stepping aside, and I think Charlie's going to run again for president. And that way I can step into probably the role of VP of Finance. I think that's what's going to, he'll have to appoint me since I'll still technically be in the role of president, so I can't kind of run for two things. But I want to mention and thank the members of the board. I'm sure you folks have heard, because it's been a kind of this terminology that's been thrown out there quite a bit, but in this case, it really does mean a lot. Servant leadership. How many people have heard that terminology about servant leadership? Well, I'm going to tell you that I am personally inspired by the members of your board. These folks are true servant leaders. Let's give them a round of applause, please. Trust me when I say nobody works harder. Nobody works harder. And I think technically we get some PDUs for this or something. Trust me when I say we're not doing it for the PDUs. All right. And we don't have, I always love Charlie's terms. We don't go on boondoggles and cruises or whatever. We don't do that. We plow all the money back into the chapter because it's all about the member. That's Charlie's mantra. That's what the chapter was founded on. And that stays our mantra. All right. So it's all about the members. Look for that, those ballots to come out. Please vote. One vote per person, please. We're not going to go through any kind of voting scandals or recounts or anything else. Trust me when I say, I'm not going to say that nobody stole the election from me. Okay. I am voluntarily stepping down, but I'm not still going to be on the board. But yeah, back to the servant leadership. I mean, look at Matt. He's running around getting his steps in at the end here, handing out books. I'm telling you, nobody works harder than this man. So thank you, man. We are so delighted. I complimented Karen on her first official communication. She put little Karen's Corner at the bottom. I hope you all saw and read Karen's Corner. This is yes again, by the way. All right. But I saw that. It's like, great. We got somebody who's taking communications very seriously. And I've been kind of probing some folks out, saying, you know, you've been here a long time. We see you at all these meetings. Please consider running for the board. A member position on the board. So do not be one of those people that sits back and says, well, no, somebody else will do it. All right. If you think that you can contribute, it's not a lot of time, but I said this before, I think I said it last month. The only thing that we do, and I set an expectation, is if you say you're going to do it, I expect you to do it. All right. So we'll give you the job, we'll give you the description. And if you say you're going to do it and you do it, it'll be great. All right. Because all of you, our members, deserve that. All right. Thank you very much. We will see you next month. I'm getting but wait, there's more. Let's wait, there's more. Oh, those people? Okay. So Matt reminded me, everybody turn around because there's one. Oh, he said, no, you're not at the restaurant. He's one of ours. Okay, I thought it was somebody from the restaurant. They're wearing black tonight, so sorry. You don't get to participate in the tip, I'm sorry. But if you would be so kind as to give a round of applause for our restaurant staff. Please be safe traveling home. We will see you next month. We're still doing the $10 next month. All right. Can't get a better deal than that. So $10, and then we're going to adjust the price back to what it used to be, but this is costing us more now. All right. Hey, that's the reality. I mean, things cost more now. So the price that will be charged is going to be a little bit more next year for the normal member price, and of course the non-member price, because we don't subsidize the non-members, but the members, we do subsidize you. All right. So it's not going to be that much more, but we are going to raise the price a little bit. All right. Thank you very much. Have a good night.